Today we're in Lincoln, New Hampshire. It's a town with a population of just about 1,700 people. The town's part of Franconia Notch State Park, and large portions of it sit in the White Mountain National Forests. Because of this, it's mostly a destination for skiers, hikers, and other outdoor enthusiasts. Hey, how's it going? I'm Jeff.
I'm not Jeff.
I'm not Jeff Jr.
Today we're at one of the many hotels and motels in the area. They're literally everywhere up here. More specifically, we're at the Indian Head Resort. This resort started in 1913 as a campground and has evolved into a pretty significant area at this time. But we're not actually here for the resort. We're here for something else. So we're here at the Indian Head Resort because it's known to be the last place that Betty and Barney Hill remember seeing when they traveled home on vacation from Canada and Niagara Falls way back in September of 1961.
What does that matter? Who are Barney and Betty Hill?
I'm glad you asked, random citizen. So their story is one that was widely popularized in a 1966 best-selling novel, The Interrupted Journey, and in a 1975 made-for-TV movie called The UFO Incident, starring Darth Vader himself, James Earl Jones, and Roseanne's mom, Estelle Parsons. So we're going to tell you their otherworldly story. Join us.
Hopefully you learned something.
Betty Hill, a social worker, and Barney Hill, a postal worker from Portsmouth, New Hampshire, were traveling home that night from a much-needed vacation when they claimed they witnessed a strange object in the sky. A UFO, if you prefer. In the area of around Lancaster, New Hampshire, Betty saw what she thought was a bright point of light. They pulled over to take a closer look. Betty thought it was a shooting star. Barney said, nah, it's probably a satellite. Barney looked at the object with some binoculars that he had and thought that it might have been a small plane, but it wasn't making any noise, and it was moving erratically. Barney got scared of what it might be and what it was going to do, so he continued to drive away from it. He even got his gun that he had hidden in the trunk of the car to protect him and his wife from whatever it was. They traveled further south down Route 3 and through Franconia Notch State Park. They observed the object pass over the tower on top of Cannon Mountain and then out over the old man of the mountain. God rest his soul. It continued to dart back and forth through the night sky, and at one point the object descended right in front of the car and forced Barney to stop in the middle of the road. Where that specific spot is still up for debate. He told Betty to keep her eyes on the craft as he tried to speed away. The craft shifted location to directly above their car, and then the couple said they heard a buzzing sound, almost as if it was bouncing off the trunk of the car, and they also felt a tingling sensation coursing through their bodies. They claimed that at that moment they lost consciousness until there was a second sound that brought them back to reality. When they woke up, they found that they were 35 miles south from where they were originally, with no memory of anything that had happened, or how they even got there, and no way to explain these 2 hours of missing time. They continued their trip home to Portsmouth, still somewhat confused about what went on. Even though they couldn't remember what happened, there was some evidence left over from their encounter. Betty's dress she was wearing was torn in multiple places, and Barney's shoes were all scuffed up. Betty couldn't remember how the damage to her dress happened, and there was also this pinkish powder on it that was never conclusively identified. Their car was also affected by the incident. There were strange, shiny circles on the trunk of the automobile, and when Betty placed a compass near the spots, the needle spun around the dial, and when moved away from the circles, it just stopped. 10 days after the incident, Betty started having these vivid dreams. She had one a night for 5 nights, and then they just stopped. According to Betty, these weren't just dreams. These were her memories of what happened to her and her husband during those missing 2 hours. Because of the intensity of these dreams, the Hills eventually sought the assistance of a psychiatrist, Dr. Benjamin Simon, and they underwent a series of hypnosis sessions. Under hypnosis, Barney recalled the events that transpired that night. He described a group of about 8 to 11 humanoid creatures in the craft with slanted eyes. One looked friendly, while the rest appeared malicious. He said that the creatures were not of this world. They instructed him to keep looking. He immediately panicked, ripped off his binoculars, and ran back to the car to try to get away from the craft and the creatures inside. Betty recalled hearing beeping in the car and then men in the road. These men started approaching the car and they opened the door. They led Barney and Betty away from the car and into their craft. They told the couple that they just wanted to do some tests on them. No big deal. And she recalls being pretty calm, but Barney wasn't. They took some skin samples, some nail samples, and some hair samples. And they even tested Betty's nervous system by probing her with some needles. And then they brought out an even larger needle and inserted it into her navel for what they said was just a pregnancy test. Barney was also examined, and he later developed warts on his genitals in a geometric pattern where the creatures had tested him. The creatures apparently spoke to the couple telepathically. They showed Betty a star map of where they were from, which she later recreated. And it turns out the only matching system is the Zeta Reticuli double star system. The leader said that she could also take a book with some strange symbols home with her, but then decided against it when the others found out. They didn't want her to remember this encounter. There's a lot of controversy surrounding this event. Of course, UFO enthusiasts unequivocally believe everything that happened on that night to the Hills. The skeptics, however, don't. No, there's a number of different reasons that they have to discount the Hills story. Some say it was a hallucination by Betty that Barney was kind of sucked into. Some say that there was too much time between the initial encounter and the hypnosis sessions. Others simply think that Barney and Betty were reading and watching too much science fiction in 1961. And of course, others say weather balloons. Regardless of what did or did not happen that night, their story is one that has become a big part of UFO lore. We figured we'd also come to Kingston, New Hampshire, here at Greenwood Cemetery, where the Hills were laid to rest. Barney died of a cerebral hemorrhage in 1969 at the age of 46, and then Betty died from cancer in 2004 at the age of 85. Betty never remarried after Barney's passing, and she claimed to have seen other UFOs after the 1961 incident, and she became somewhat of a celebrity in the UFO community. Thanks for joining us here on another action-packed episode of Exit the Norm.
Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. What do you think? Were the Hills really abducted, or was it all made up?
Did you learn something? This is the end of the video.